Everybody, welcome back to the Anointed Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Terry Linscott. Again, so grateful that you're joining me today. Today, we're going to jump into the second portion of what I'm calling a series of teachings on the killers of growth or killers of success. Last episode, we talked about the idea that we've never done it that way, or this is the way we've always done it, and how that does not stimulate growth. It actually kills it. A mindset that isn't open for change, but it's an idea of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Today, we're going to dive into the second thought that I have on the killer of success, and that is the lack of proper communication. Hey, before we do that today, I want to ask you to do a couple things. One, if you've never subscribed to the channel on whatever platform you're listening to, please do so. I would really appreciate that. Hit the bell, the notification that lets you know that when we drop one of these, every other Thursday, we drop one of these. In August, we're going to begin to drop some bonus episodes of short clips of just some leadership insights and thoughts, and I pray that you'll enjoy those and be a part of those. Second of all, share this. Share this with friends, family, coworkers, other leaders, pastors, people on your team that you believe this content will help them and help your organization. And lastly, I would love to hear from you, and you can reach me at terrylinscott.com. You can hit a question or answer a question on there. You can shoot me an email there. You can request some help from me, and I would be glad to be able to offer some help to you, your team, your church, whatever that is. So let's jump into it today. Without further ado here, we've got the second thought on killers of success or killers of growth. And I want to say this from a perspective of transparency and vulnerability. Like I talked on the last one, this is something that has just happened in our own organization, in our own church, our own ministry. And it is a level of communication. James chapter 1 says this, verse 19, "So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." It's a level of communication. I'm going to say it again. Let every man be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. This is how proper communication looks. And I think so many times that people are never quick to hear. They are quick to respond. They are quick to speak. They're quick to get angry and get emotionally caught up in because it rubs them the wrong way. They don't like it. Their perspective is different. It's an emotional immaturity, in my opinion, of what takes place in poor communication. And when people feel attacked, rather than the idea is we're after the same mission, and that's accomplishing great success in our business, in our church, on our team, in our organization, we must realize that communication will make or break. It will kill or it will promote success in any level, in any entity. I'm going to say a few things before I talk about how to establish good communication. And again, this came actually 2 times in 2 consecutive days, back-to-back days, different staff members here at the church. And it was really quick to see that one side of the story was being heard, and it promoted an irritation, an emotional disgruntlement. It was creating strife inside the team, and which ultimately creates a division. And I saw it, and of course, it wasn't until it was over and done that I actually got to see that, and I got to address them, and we were working through that. As I'm talking right now, this team is working through proper communication. But here's what I believe. Communication in the marriage, there are 3 components: sex, communication, and money. All of those revolve around communication. If your communication is poor, your intimacy life will be poor. If your communication is poor, guess what else is? Your money's poor. You can have good money and you can have good intimacy with poor communication, and you're not going to have a successful marriage if you are not communicating. Well, it's the same thing in business, in ministry, in church. Telling somebody isn't communicating, by the way. Communication will make or break your team's success, and telling isn't communicating. Instructing isn't communicating, right? Communication is greater than all of those things. Most communication, most people's form of communication is an opinion rather than information. It's my way, my thoughts, my hopes, my desires, my viewpoints, and it's not information. It's not the truth. It's not the facts. It's not the realities. And communication in the form of opinions creates an emotional decline in the team. Most people in that level of communication, most people are thinking of the response rather than listening for a perspective. This is what happened in both of these things in my own team. One was a text conversation that generated a one-sided perspective that generated an irritation in one of my team members. The second is instructions given to do something inside of another conversation. Those instructions got set to the side due to other information. And without the second portion of that, the one that established the instruction got irritated. What am I telling you? It's because people aren't seeing the perspective. They hear something, and that's not communication. It has to be both ways, listening and talking. It cannot be one way. It's not one-sided. Most leaders, most business supervisors, most managers feel like lack of communication is when I say they don't do, that's lack of communication. The reality is it's poor on both sides. It's not just poor on the hearer. It is definitely poor on the sender, and we must fix that. This is what I really mean. In Proverbs chapter 18, verse 13, it says, a fool listens to one side of the story and makes a decision. You cannot see one side of the coin and make your decision. In leadership, in business, in marriage, you have to be open for new perspectives or the other person's perspective rather than yours to have proper communication. But the Bible says it. It's a proverb. Come on. It's something that we live life by. A fool listens to one side of the story and makes a decision. We don't do that. I'm not a fool, and leaders create fools of themselves because if they do this. Listen, I'm talking about from transparency today. Watch, Paul says this in 1 Corinthians chapter 3. He said, I wish I could give you milk, like meat from the word of God, something strong. I wish you were being men, if you want to break it down. But I can't. I can only give you milk that is for babies because you're acting like babies because there is strife, envy, and divisions. You know what all that is? Poor communication. It is a lack of conversations that generate unity amongst the team to do something. You and I have to get communication down. As leaders, it's the most vital aspect. And if our communication is poor in our team, it's poor in our church, it's poor in our marriage, man, it's going to kill success. And we've got to fix that. And so because of my own team, I'm just being very transparent and real to you today. My teams aren't perfect. I'm not the greatest leader. We always are working on ourselves. I really believe the greatest leaders are the ones that work on themselves first and their own teams. And so I think that's what we're doing today. And I just want to help you. I feel like there are so many things that are hindering people's success and not much conversation about it. And this is one of them. A lack of communication in the team will kill your success. So how do we establish good communication? Again, I think it's so simple when you listen to it, when you read it. I personally think it's simple when I wrote this down, but it's really, as I've researched, as I've studied, these are like a few of the key points that actually will generate good communication inside your team. Number one is you have to listen instead of formulating your reply. Listen. It's like you've seen that reel, that TikTok. Listen, Linda. Listen, Linda. You gotta listen. You're not listening to me. You're just hearing. You're not listening. Listening is that intently understanding what you're saying, not necessarily formulating the reply. I'm not going to give you a response or an answer until I have the information needed to give an intellectual decision and a response. Well, listen instead of formulating a reply. Most people don't do that. Most people are arguing their point of view rather than listening to generate their own response to what is being said based on a perspective. Most want to be right rather than productive, which is what's happening. We don't really care about production. We don't even care about success. We just care about being right. This is why people don't listen. They formulate a reply because they want to be right. They want to prove their point. They want to stand their ground. They don't want to back down. They don't really care what your opinion is. If you're going to generate good communication, you're going to have to eliminate the reply and definitely open the lines of listening. Most people are defensive rather than cooperative. That's because they're looking for the reply. They're looking to be right. If you eliminate being right on your team and just being productive and being successful and chasing down the mission that we're all on and realize there's nothing personal, but it is the benefit of the mission rather than the individual, what will happen is we will listen and cause us to look from a different perspective, that you can see the whole picture. If you can only see half, you don't see the whole. But if you'll set yourself up to turn a little to see it from a different perspective, you may get a better picture, but you'll never do that formulating a reply in your head without listening first. How do you create or establish good communication? One, listen instead of formulating a reply. I say this way with great elementary mindset because it's realistically what happened to the two team members on my team. They weren't listening. They didn't listen to anything that was said. They didn't ask the question. They simply heard information, took it as an opinion, and they took it from the wrong perspective. And I'm telling you, I've seen it this way. If you'll just establish a new look, a new way to approach the conversation in listening rather than replying, I guarantee you, you'll see the whole picture and it may give you a different perspective. You'll understand it more. Two, here's what happens when somebody's talking to you. This is how I establish your communication. I listen first. Two, the only way to listen and not reply is to manage your emotions. You must manage them. You must not be an emotional individual. We are all emotional creatures. We all have them, but doesn't mean we have to be living by them. We don't have to be driven by them. We can control ourselves. That's called self-control. You don't have to be driven by your emotions. You must manage them. The only way to manage your emotions is recognize that people aren't attacking us, that they are actually trying to benefit the mission that we're all going after. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about teams, and we're talking about churches, and we're talking about organizations. People are not against us. They're for the mission. Now, some might be, but the reality is let's go after the mission. Let's attack the mission of our team. Here's what I mean. Managing your emotions, you've got to understand outbursts will never fare well for you. It'll never end well for you, and it will never create a smooth path to a great destination. It will create potholes, bumps, holes, weeds, tear, all these things inside the pathway when you start outbursting, because now outbursts are signs of emotional immaturity that actually stems from selfish pride and ego. We're more interested in ourselves than we are the mission. So we've got to manage that. We've got to realize that we got to get pride and egotistical mindsets under the control to be able to go after a solid, stable emotions, to listen to what's going on, to generate a pathway to greater success in our teams. Again, this is transparency. This is vulnerability. I'm not talking to you from something I don't know. I'm talking to you something that just happened in my own team, and I'm watching it. And so we're going to deal with this. Self-control is simply easily attained when you don't take anything personally. It's not personal. We're going after the same mission. We're on the emotional reactions simply create strife and divisions. That's what creates it. It's emotional outbursts. It's emotions. Your blood pressure boils, your skin color changes, you bite your tongue, you grit your teeth, you get mad, you stomp. It just creates strife. It creates divisions. And where there's division and strife, that thing is sure to fall, right? If it's a house divided, will not stand. That's the plan of the enemy, by the way. So get all of that out by opening lines of communication, right? Everyone has the emotions. We just must keep the target is the task, not the person. And we must understand it from the other side of it. They're not attacking me. They're just saying their viewpoint of something is different than mine, but we both want success. So take my friend Chris Walker, my associate here at the church, says, do a golf walk. He talks about it in marriages. Go look from the other side. It's a simple, different perspective. It's so simple. Your ball is here and you're going to the hole, but you step to the other side of the hole to look across the hole to the ball. It's a different perspective. That's what I'm asking you. You manage your emotions, listen rather than respond, right? So here we are. We listen rather than formulating a reply. We manage our emotions. 3, this is establishing great communication inside of a team. You ask questions rather than attack. Ask a simple question. For example, a team member come to me one time and said, I got this text and I don't know why they didn't do this, whatever this is, right? So I looked at him and I said, well, why didn't you ask them? It changed their perspective. It changed their mindset. Well, and then I said, well, why did you do that? And of course, I never attacked him. I just asked some questions. Simply this, the question generates the reality that you may need to look at it from a different perspective. The question is just trying to probe a different perspective out of somebody. So when you're in good communication, if you don't want to be emotional and you don't want to formulate a reply and you don't gather all the information, ask questions. When you ask questions, you are now probing for a different point of view. Not so much for you, but also for the person talking to you. Questions are not questioning. Most of the time, we get offended when somebody questions because we think they're questioning. But if we will open the floor for questions, it's not questioning us. It's not attacking us. It just simply means they're trying to discover a new perspective. And maybe for you, ask questions, don't question them to get a new perspective. This is how we establish good communication. You must open the lines, and you have to do that. Right questions come from a place of lack of understanding rather than attack. Right questions come from a place of lack of understanding rather than attacking people. So if we ask the right questions, again, no questions are wrong, right? No questions are stupid. It just simply mean, I don't know, so help me understand. We've got to ask the question. 1, how do I establish good communication? 1, right? We've got to listen instead of formulating a reply. 2, we got to manage our emotions. 3, again, these are simple, but you got to ask questions. Don't question, ask a question. Just simply ask it to get a different perspective. Understand this, if you're going to have good communication, you have to create opportunities for them to ask you questions as a leader. It's okay that they ask you. It's okay that you twist the thought process to give a different perspective. It's not twist the truth, it's twist the thought process to understand a different perspective, right? So we ask questions. 1, we listen without formulating a reply. 2, we manage our emotions. 3, we ask questions. 4, here's what I want you to do. Repeat to me what I said to you. Repeat or rephrase what you hear. If you repeat what I say or rephrase it, I know that you've listened to me. But if you can't repeat to me what I asked, I know you're not listening to me. Repeating what you hear allows the sender of the info to determine if you're tracking it. Are you tracking? Do you understand what I'm saying? Just ask them, hey, before we just repeat to me, what is it that we're doing again? What is it that I said? What is it that you said? Here, let me tell you what you said. Let me tell you what I hear. This is establishing good communication on teams. There's nothing wrong with it. It might become, in our mindset, elementary, but the reality, a lack of emotional stability is elementary. So we can go either way with that. Let's be elementary, because anything that's elementary is always attainable. Let's just remember that. Rephrasing allows both parties to understand the perspective of the listener. We both get to see it. We both get to understand it that way. And if you haven't received the understanding, ask more questions. It goes back to ask a question, ask this question, ask that question, repeat. And if you still don't get it, ask some more questions. Take the time. Promise you, if you took an extra 15 minutes in communication with questions and making sure we're on the same page, it'll save you weeks and hours of hard labor and work that ends to nothing. So ask questions, repeat, rephrase. Again, how do we generate good communication in a team? 1, listen without formulating a reply. 2, manage your emotions. 3, ask questions. 4, repeat or rephrase what you hear. 5, listen, agree on next steps. Agree on next steps. Agreement is a sign of unity. When you can agree on something, I mean, this is the thing. Can you agree on which way we're going? Can you agree on how long it takes? Can you agree we're going to meet on Monday? Can you agree we're going to table this till next Wednesday? Can you agree on what time we're going to eat? If you create an agreement, now there's unity and accountability. If you can't agree, then you haven't really communicated. Whether you agree to disagree, there's still agreement, right? You must agree on the next steps. If you can't come to a resolve, agree that we're both going to walk away. We're going to be unhurt. We're not going to be emotional. We're going to be in complete self-control. We're still focused on the mission. And we're going to agree that we're going to come back in 48 hours and we're going to rediscuss this after we've thought about it. That's an agreement. What are you doing? You're eliminating division. You're eliminating strife. And you're agreeing, which brings unity. And unity is the key to great success. Without unity, you won't have success. Unity is the force in which the bond is made for champions. When we can come together, we can do the same thing, all on the same page, all to give the same levels of effort, all have the same mindset. We all pick up the slack. It's unity. It's what is the force that bonds the greatness and champions. Unity, we're in it together. You can't go in two different directions and call yourself unified. So if I'm in communication and I disagree, agree that you disagree. Find a level of unity, but don't leave it. Table it until a specific date agreed on to come back and rediscuss it after thoughts. After times by yourself to really think about it and get a gain of perspective or ask other questions, then agree to come back. Agreement on next steps. Agreement is a sign of unity, and unity is what promotes great success. Disunity, a house divided shall not stand. And so we see these things. Communication, please hear my heart, coming to you from a place where I have to implement these same things today as I'm doing this. How do you generate and establish good communication? 1, listen instead of formulating a reply. 2, manage your emotions. 3, ask questions. 4, repeat or rephrase what you hear. 5, agree on the next step. I promise you, these are the simple points, in my opinion, of how we generate good communication amongst the team. Hey, thanks for joining me today. I pray this content helps you. Wait until next time. We're going to talk about another killer of success or killer of growth next episode. Don't miss it. Hey, share this content. And again, until the next time, I call you blessed, and may the anointing of God get all over you to help you accomplish everything God has called you to do in Jesus' name.